Hey Josh, have you ever wondered what the podcasting equivalent of a playoff beard is? Because I honestly have no clue.
Uh, uh, uh,
I mean, that's about the right answer.
yeah. Well, so
Hang
I
on.
have so many questions. First of all, welcome to Cross Checking, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Pastor Josh Lavorius. I'm pastor down in the Houston area at Friendswood, Texas, specifically at Hope Lutheran Church. With me is my, I don't know how his brain connects, co-host, Mr. Ben Olschlager, up in Lake Orion, Michigan at Good Shepherd. This is a Christian Lutheran podcast where we talk about things about faith and life and just try to help people grow in their understanding of who God is and of who he calls them to be. And we also like hockey. That's why the play on words for the name of the show. That's why I'm wearing a cross-checking jersey. And all of that to say, I have no idea where Ben's cold open fits into any of that. So
So we're gonna talk
I
about
don't even know
something.
what the playoffs for podcasts would be
Yeah, I don't know
that
either.
you would then need a playoff beard for said playoffs.
You know, I think the spirit behind a playoff beard is that you keep growing it because you're doing well and you're advancing in the playoffs. And I think as long as this podcast continues to grow, that implies that we should continue to grow our beards. Comment if you think that's a good idea.
I don't care what your comments are. I will keep my beard trimmed. I like my beard. I don't like having a long beard because then Ben's doesn't have this issue. Ben's is pretty majestic, if not very well combed. Mine gets super greasy and it's pretty not cool. That's why mine is tight and trimmed because I produce enough grease to bankrupt the oil industry sometimes. That's more information than any of you guys needed to know. But now
We're now 2.5 minutes into this show, and all that we've talked about is our beards. But that's kind of perfect
oh
because,
well, on theme,
yes, one of the things that we're going to talk about
just
today,
like we planned it.
and Josh doesn't know actually where we're going with this, so he's along for the ride as much as the rest of you are. Kind of our broad topic for the day is facial hair, and there's a reason for that in my head that makes sense, and I promise we'll get there eventually. But one of the things that a lot of people make comment about when they go into Lutheran churches is it seems like the vast majority of Lutheran pastors have beards. And if not beards, mustache. And if not mustache, they just full bald. Um, it's not a hard and fast rule. I certainly know Lutheran pastors without beards or facial hair, but especially like Josh and I's generation, um, it's there's a solid amount of facial hair.
And I don't know if you're going to go into this, but especially when you recognize specifically our generation, I wonder if that isn't something generational, if that's just because our generation happens to be young right now and the beard, as maybe immature as this sounds, the beard gives you a little bit more of the illusion of age in a work setting where very often people can think that they can just dismiss you because you're younger than they are. So I wonder if you were to look at this, and I can't imagine we will be, but if you could look at this 50 years from now, is our generation still well bearded, or have they all given up on the beard because they don't need it anymore? I don't know. These are I like Ben said, I have no idea where we're going with this, so I'm just trying to contribute as best I can.
I'm trying to picture what I would look like in 50 years with a beard. We had a guy here at Good Shepherd who I want to say about
For what
6
it's
months.
worth, Martin Luther was generally clean shaven, according to my AI overview on Google.
We're getting to that. We're getting to that. So, 6 months to a year ago, he shaved his massive, beautiful beard down to just like handlebar mustache. But regardless, pretty spectacular facial hair. I hope that my facial hair is like anywhere close to that, and I would be happy. He was rocking it pretty good. But the thing that I want to go with on this episode, and I think the thing that maybe the facial hair discussion brings out a little bit more of, is what is a put together appearance for somebody who's in leadership in a church. This podcast used to be called Man Buns and Jesus because Josh and I out of the seminary both rocked man buns. I still do. Josh gave up because he's a scrub. But I think there's something to be said about like what your appearance says about you and what you're maybe trying to accomplish with your appearance.
That's a fascinating direction for you to go, and I am glad. I'm glad you did.
You're
For
very
anyone
welcome,
who's
Josh.
not aware, because I do imagine a lot of the folks who listen to this podcast aren't this person, but for some reason, in some folks think it is perfectly acceptable for them to comment on the personal stylistic choices of the pastor, which and I'm sure we're going to talk about this. In some cases, it might be a friendly, hey, do you know, like, this is how you're coming off, or this is how you're coming across. In some cases, it's like, I don't like your hair. You should cut it. Do I tell you to cut your hair or grow your hair? No, I presume not to, sir or madam. You know how much trouble I'd get in if I went around telling people what haircuts they should get? I imagine I would get slapped a lot, and justifiably so. But anyway,
you're in Texas too. My stereotype of Texans is that they are all wearing cowboy boots. Those things are made of very durable leather, and I would assume hurt quite a bit.
I would assume all of those things to be true, yes.
I would also assume that like 20% of your congregation is just carrying bullwhips with them wherever they go, because that's also one of my stereotypes of Texans. If you're a part of Josh's congregation, I love you. I'm poking.
Clearly, we need to get Ben to come visit Texas so he realizes that it's not from a Western movie. The cowboy boots, that there's a little bit of truth to that one, actually.
I figured that one was not stretching it as much, but I figured the bullwhips was probably.
I mean, it's probably not 50%, but there are a lot of. I've been told they're actually very comfortable. I can't imagine that because it feels like a garment that does inherently limit your mobility with your ankles, and I can't. And it's also so hot. I can't fathom wearing.
Yeah, my imagination, and this is my TMI moment since Josh gave us his earlier. I would imagine that if I wore cowboy boots at any time of the year in Texas, that I would need to take them off and dump them out a couple times a day because I'd sweat so much in them. And nobody wants that. So even if I take a call to Texas at some point in the future, I'm not wearing cowboy boots, and there's no way you can make me. That's on brand. Former theme of the show. You can't tell us what to do,
What
But
do you mean former? Former, current, and always.
fair. The point,
So I have two questions for you, Ben.
sure.
Well, two, I guess, avenues. I might be derailing your plans, and
No, go
I've
ahead.
never been opposed to that. Um, the first is you said a great beard, and I think we need to pause and discuss what makes a great beard.
That's a good question. It's a
That's an
very,
important thing. We're going to have to talk about that on this episode.
yep.
And then the other thing is, as you said, this. What are our standards for? We'll call it the physical appearance of leaders in the church, especially pastors. And I don't say that because pastors are going in a different category. I'm just pastors tend to be the guy who's most often standing in front of everyone. So at very least, you have to make sure that your physical appearance is not distracting,
Yep.
among other things. And I was just a couple categories I thought of this kind of how you portray yourself with physical appearance. You have grooming is one category, and that would be like the beards would fall into that. Another is clothing, which is another thing that some people have some strong opinions about. And then the other one that came to mind, weirdly enough, is cars.
Mhm.
And that's I don't think people get really nitpicky about that, but if there's something to be said of what's the perception of if the whole congregation is rolling up in Hondas and the pastor rolls up in a Porsche, there are some questions about like humility. There's a little bit of question about stewardship, and that doesn't necessarily mean that there's anything wrong going on, but it's just the optics might be suboptimal. So I don't know if we need to have more conversation about the cars bit, but the first two bits I think is a place we can explore.
Yeah.
So
Why don't we start with beards? Because this episode, at least in name, is
it's
on
about
facial hair.
beards.
Um, so two things that I think of off the bat. One, I think there are a lot of ways that a beard can be good. Like a good, well groomed, strong beard close to the chin can be good. A massive, like intimidating,
Wizard of Oz, or not Wizard of Oz, not Grand Wizard either. That's something else.
yeah,
Um,
like
a wizardy beard.
yeah.
That's
Think
what I'm trying to say. A
Dumbledore from Harry
wizardy
Potter.
beard.
Think or Gandalf. I believe Gandalf
Gandalf doesn't have a beard.
doesn't he?
No, not in the Peter Jackson movies, right? No, Gandalf. Sure enough, he does have a beard, and it is pretty fly.
Thank you.
Never mind. Why was I picturing? Does Saruman not have a beard? Am I just?
I hope that your brothers give me points for correctly remembering which Lord of
I
the Rings
would have
characters.
no doubt that Ian's going to speak up and give you points for my.
Thanks, Ian, preemptively. And while we're at it, I can't but help but not mention Treebeard when it comes to big old bushy
Well, of
beards.
course.
Yes, exactly. So, the big, majestic, like intimidating, either wizardly or lumberjacky kind of beards. Like
Which wizardy, like we're reaching three different lengths here because wizardy is like long down. Lumberjacks, I feel like, are a little bit tighter because they're
I feel like
swinging axes around all day, and you don't want to be impeded in your. Anyway,
I feel like wizardy is like wispier, where lumberjacky is more like even ZZ Top is kind of lumberjacky. For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, look up the ZZ Top guys and their beards. They're pretty incredible. But it's just bigger in volume and bushier. And I think still does something for them. So, like, it's not how the beard is styled, it's how you wear it. And if you wear it in a way that makes sense for you and doesn't, like, make you look worse, I think you're fine. Right?
I agree with you. I think there are two qualities that should be present in all beards.
Okay.
regardless of length and style. The first is neatness. No matter what your beard's like, if you have food sitting around in it, that's gross.
That's fair.
Clean your beard. If it's like 7 different lengths, you trim so it's a little bit more uniform, whether it's long or short, like whatever. So neatness counts for something. And fullness, I think, also does count for something, and that's a little bit of your length choice.
Mm-hmm.
Because like if you naturally grow a very full beard, you can get away with a shorter cut. But like if it's patchy, you need a little bit more to disguise the patchiness. But no one looks great in a patchy beard. You look like you're a 14-year-old who's trying to grow a beard.
Yeah. Yep. That's accurate.
But those are kind of the overriding consistent things that are important for beards.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that.
Keep them clean.
Yeah. I think the most important factor to consider when considering whether or not you have a beard is if you are in a relationship or you live under your parents' roof, you better listen to what those people have to say about your facial hair. So if you're in high school and all you can grow is like the thinnest, grossest mustache, but you think it's cool because you're in high school and you can grow facial hair, and your parents tell you, hey, that thing's gross, shave it off, shave it off.
And that's not even necessarily a honor your parents thing, although it is very much honor or dishonor on your parents. They're looking out for you, my guy. Trust them. Trust them.
Trust us. Trust the process. Anyway,
this is unrelated, but so if anyone has any wisdom to this effect that they want to drop in the comments, they can. I have always wondered it because they'll sell products like help grow your beard, and I suspect that all of them they all feel a little snake oily to me. Which for anyone who doesn't get that reference, it means they don't really do anything. But the one that I've always been curious about is they sell like micro needle rollers that are supposed to stimulate blood flow to the area, which for me, like logically, I'm like that sounds like something that could stimulate hair growth, but I don't know. So if you've ever tried one of those things and had either success or lack of success, feel free to share in the comments to sate my curiosity.
I think about the only thing that can truly stimulate hair growth would be a topical testosterone treatment.
Oh.
Because if you take like anabolic steroids, which are supposed to mimic testosterone, you actually lose hair because your body makes less testosterone naturally, and that impacts your ability to grow body hair. But I think if you do it localized, it can actually be effective. That's what
Not that we're advocating for medical interventions. Be happy with the beard God gave you, or the lack of beard that God gave you.
Well, like I think a lot of the baldness creams are things that are supposed to be like local kind of hormone treatments to help stimulate hair growth. Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yep. Anyway, so that's beards. Beards are cool. Mustaches also cool, especially if you make them like long and curly cued.
One very specific exception of mustaches not being cool. And if you get what I'm referencing, that's great. If you don't, it's okay. We
Charlie
can move
Chaplin?
on. Yeah, we'll call it his mustache. Yep. We'll say that.
Yep, don't do that.
Especially not with the whole Lutheran German thing, and we're talking about Lutheran identity. We'll stay away from that one.
Yep. Good idea. So that's facial hair in general. And the other thing that I was going to kind of bring up with this is that there's a period of Luther's life where he very famously grows out his facial hair while he's on the run from the Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire and the Catholic Church. He pretends to be a knight named Junker Jorg, Knight George, and he grows out a big old magnificent beard to disguise himself. Um, People know who he is.
It's the equivalent of a fake mustache. That's hilarious.
Yes, people know who he is. He's Luther. He's pretty famous. Um, but they just kind of go along with it. And I think on
Sure, buddy, the beard's really working. We can't tell who you are.
Yeah, exactly. I think on some level, some of the like Lutheran beard desire, or like desire to grow a beard, might come from the like beards are always a little bit rebellious. Luther used it as a disguise when he was running for his life. Like if you think about some of the people that we've referenced in this episode with great beards or beard styles, Gandalf, Dumbledore, the guys from ZZ Top. For some reason, I have like Greek soccer players in my head. There's I can't remember his name.
Zlatan Greek. He
what?
doesn't have a beard though, and he.
There's a guy about a decade back, and I remember him from numerous FIFA video games, who infamously would shave before a match started, have 5 o'clock shadow by halftime.
Yikes!
Yeah, like.
Speaking of beards and rebellion, though, and soccer players, one of my wife's favorite soccer players, Leandro Gonzalo Perez, he used to be a defender for Atlanta, sported a beard, and we'll just say he frequently got in trouble with the referees because he disagreed about how they were officiating the game. So there's the rebellion for you.
Yeah, I think like the clean shaven look is generally kind of associated with being higher class. Beards are often more associated with like lower brow, lower class, rebellion, that kind of thing. And I mean, what is Lutheran identity if not like, hey, we're a bunch of rebels who think we're right because we are, but also like our history is telling different church bodies off because they're wrong. So rebels, yeah.
At the same time, see our 2 episodes ago on how Lutherans are nerds. Yeah.
Yep. Nope. Fully understood. Fully understood. So let's just spend a few minutes here on general like presentation. And I think this can apply. So far we've talked a lot about
of everything, or are we still on beards?
No, of everything. Of everything.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Good. I was running out of beard content.
A lot of what we've talked about so far, sorry for our female listeners that you've made it this well. Congratulations on making it this far. This part might actually be relevant to you. But
no, we just gave them all ammunition to deal with husbands and boyfriends.
We did. Congratulations. Maybe, I don't know. Anyway, when it comes to appearance, I think there are things that we can talk about more generally that do apply to everybody. And the big key with facial hair that Josh and I just kind of talked about is like, just make sure it looks good. Make sure it's not going to distract or detract from your appearance or your ability to present yourself and the things that you want to present to others, right? Same kind of thing with appearance. Just don't let it be an obstacle. And that's
another way
much more
to phrase that. Make sure even with your appearance, you are still glorifying God.
Yeah. It can also be way more subjective in that realm though too, because like, so I think about the fact that about a year and a half ago, we consolidated from 2 church services on Sunday mornings to 1. We've actually had our attendance go up since then. So not for attendance reasons, but just because I wanted to have everybody in the same place at the same time. But I'd gotten used to kind of doing the liturgy in different ways with each group of people. And the way that I presented myself was a part of that. So for our early morning crowd, these are your old school, dyed in the wool Lutherans who still have their, I'm being, I'm exaggerating here, but like probably still have their 1948 copy of the Lutheran hymnal on their bookshelf at home that's well worn in with their name in the front cover. Like you can stereotype a little bit there, but these are people that are used to a certain way of doing service. They've had it that way for 40, 50 years at this congregation, or wherever they're coming from, if not longer. And they just have an expectation of how things are done. And then my second service was a lot more laid back. And for me, that was kind of intentional because I have a lot of experience myself, and I've had a lot of conversations with people that are close to me about how sometimes the way that we present ourselves as pastors or as Christians, or the ways that we present our liturgy and our theology can seem overly formal and hard to, like, not just hard to pick up, but
it can feel unapproachable.
Yeah, it can feel exclusive.
Yes, that's a good word for it.
Yeah. Not in a like high end way, but in a like, because this is so tough to grasp, you might just give up trying because it feels like a mountain. And I'm not saying that that's a good reason to get rid of traditions or anything.
Right. We're not calling for an abolishment of the liturgy.
Yes.
It's just, are we presenting it in a way that is, no, this is something that is open to you, that is good for you and you can learn, or are we presenting ourselves in a way of like, you should already have all this figured out?
Yeah. And so like where I've come to in the meantime is somewhere in the middle. It's a pretty traditional looking service, but it's about as low church a presentation as you can get for that traditional of a service. Because like a lot of my membership here are people who grew up in church but don't really fully grasp what's going on. And that's not a knock on those of you in our congregation who are listening. It's just like, I don't think that there's been as much focus on learning what the service is for until the last like 5-10 years. Again, there was a big old gap of probably 40-50 years there where it just wasn't a thing that people talked a whole lot about. And, there were other things that they were focused on, and that's fine. So now that we're kind of circling back on what are we doing in the service, I feel like it's better to make things approachable while still retaining what we do that's important. And I think that applies to how pastors present too.
Yeah. Well, and a really easy example of that from a clothing perspective is the collar. And for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, traditionally, and I don't know how far back this tradition goes, pastors have worn, it's a black shirt with a about an inch, maybe an inch and a half collar that goes all the way around, and it's buttoned in the front, and there's a little white tab that goes in the front. I hate to break it to people, but a lot of times that tab is just a folded up index card, because the one that came with the shirt they lost at some point, and instead of trying to go get a new one, you just fold up an index card and you tuck it in there. It works the same way.
I think I might have one of the pieces of plastic floating around in my office somewhere, but I'm not entirely sure.
And if you go back, that was kind of a standard uniform for a lot of Lutheran pastors. I mean, still, if you go to the seminary, like that is your attire for the call service, for any kind of those formal events. Um, but, and if you've grown up in the Lutheran church, you say, yeah, like that's pastors wear collars. What has changed a little bit is not necessarily inside the church, but it's outside the church. Because now, if you ask someone who's not familiar with Lutheranism and they see someone in a collar, at least in the places that I have served, and this isn't necessarily true everywhere, the assumption is that's a Catholic priest. The collar has, I think, very much been associated with the priesthood, which has some connotations, and it also is seen as a very traditional religious thing, which is fair because it kind of is. And so all of that builds into if you are, and this is for folks in my congregation, this is why I don't wear a collar, because I know that for some people that is going to be an obstacle, and they're going to be more hesitant to approach me, to ask me questions, to talk to me about religious and faith stuff, if they perceive me as what they have built up in their head as the stereotype of the kind of person who wears this. Do I have one? Yes. Will I wear it if the occasion calls for it? I can. But like that is my rationale. So like if you catch me, and Ben and I don't necessarily dress the same way, but I tend to go with a business casual, a professional but not super professional. Like that's how I portray myself. So when I'm coming into the office or when I'm going to pastors conferences and things like that, you're going to catch me in just some slacks. Frankly, they're Adidas golf pants is what they are.
They breathe
And
so nice.
a huh?
They breathe so nice.
They do, and
So
they
much better.
fit my weight. Well, and they fit my. More importantly, they fit my weightlifter thighs, which is a problem. Um, to which Adidas has provided my solution, and then I wear a button-down shirt, typically with the sleeves rolled up. This is my look because it conveys I'm taking this seriously. I am a professional, like that's what I'm doing here, but not in a way that I'm inaccessible. Like not very many people are going to see a guy in a button-down shirt with his sleeves rolled up and say, "Oh, that guy looks really intimidating, really like I don't think I can talk to that guy."
Mm.
So like that is the rationale behind my choice of how I dress and how I present myself at church. There are other contexts where those aren't the same concerns that you're going to be dealing with, but for me and for the context I have found myself in, that's kind of how I think through it.
Yeah. And I think I'm in a similar boat. I'm almost always wearing a polo. Sometimes I'll wear one of our nice Good Shepherd like logo t-shirts. Especially if I know I'm doing a lot with our preschool that day, or if it's the middle of the summer and it's just hot as heck out. I give myself a little grace there. But I tend to go a little bit more casual than Josh because, like, I'm hanging out with preschool kids for a good chunk of the day. And that's a blast.
I also hang out with preschool kids, but full disclosure, the reason I don't wear polos is because I hate the way I look in them.
That's fair. That's fair.
That's not a principal thing. That's I look in the mirror when I'm wearing a polo and I'm like, ooh.
Wrong shape. Wrong shape.
Yeah.
Yep.
Not for me.
Fair enough.
Not for me.
Fair enough. But like, yeah, I just if I get thrown up on, I don't want it to be like $100 shirt that
You don't want it to be in your suit.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's fine. I've yet to be thrown up on. I think
That's a streak. We can try and keep going. I think I'm on team not get Ben thrown up on.
With a baby coming at some point here soon, like I don't know how long that's going to last, but
yeah. Well, spit up's a little different, and also
still technically,
I presume you change out of work clothes when you get home. So,
I mean, usually, but I do some work from home, and I usually stay in my work clothes a little bit after I get home until I'm done working, and then change, so that if I get called out to something, I'm ready. But
Fair enough.
or if I've got like an evening meeting and I just go home for a little bit in the afternoon, I might not change. Anyway, like there's a purpose behind the way that we dress, and it's to try and meet the challenge that's in front of us on a daily basis. Um, and that may not necessarily be the same challenge that the church had 5-10 years ago, like that specific congregation. And like if you have multiple people on staff, you might have multiple pastors that dress in different ways because they do different things.
Yeah.
If there was a church that I got to know pretty well when I was in Omaha on my vicarage, they hosted us, and I believe it was their visitation pastor would frequently be wearing a collar, even though like nobody else on staff did, because he was like he was retired, working part time, making visits, and a lot of the people he was visiting, I'm sure, had memory issues. Like, so that image, seeing the tab can be something that for people who are used to it and familiar with it can be a big signifier of like, yeah, that makes sense. This is pastor. I should listen to him because it's pastor.
Yeah.
Not everybody feels that way. I mean, goes that way with collars. I think for some people it can even be, you know, when you robe up on Sunday morning, but that's a problem. Like,
There are some folks, I mean, we can just put it this way. There are some folks that are going to be most receptive if you're in a tank top and lifter shoes.
mm-hmm.
Some people are going to be most receptive if you're dressed like a young professional. Some people are going to be most receptive if you have a collar on. And some people aren't going to listen to you unless you're wearing the robe. And that's fair. So we just we do our best to reach as many people as we can.
Yep. So if you wonder why we do the things we do, give us a little grace.
There's most of the time, or more often than not, there is a reason for it.
Yeah. I mean, Josh, you cut your hair because it's warm in Texas, right?
I did. Well, I initially, so for those of you who have been following the podcast for a while, I did have a man bun, and you can go back and look at old episodes and see it. I cut it because it was just starting to bug me. Like, especially when I would use my phone and when I would make calls, it kept getting stuck in my case, and I was ripping hair out of my head, and I was sick of it. And I was kind of tired because I always had to keep it up because it looked really bad when it was down. So it was either up or looked like anything. Anyway, so I trimmed it. It was still a little on the longer side, but I trimmed it. And again, if you've been following, you saw that. But Ben's exactly right. It's hot down here. So I got rid of some hair because it's hot down here. Mowing the lawn is much less of a suffering experience because I have less hair. And I also don't have to pay for haircuts, so that's nice.
That's fair.
I just...
I also don't have to pay for haircuts.
Because he doesn't get them.
Yeah. No, I'm planning to donate mine here at some point soon, but it'll still be in a man bun. Don't worry.
Oh.
Yeah. I honestly keep mine long because I think it's a reminder that not everything happens the way that it used to. I think 40 years ago, it would have been unconscionable for a pastor to have a man.
Oh, yeah. How? No way.
No
way.
The current president of the Michigan district, a guy named Dave Davis, lovely human being. There's a picture of him from the end of seminary with a full, like, hippie flow head of hair. Because that he was kind of a hippie when he was in seminary. And yeah, peace out, dude. He knew that like there was no way that could fly when he went into his congregation. So he cut it. He kind of regrets cutting it because he felt like for a little while, people felt like they could just bend him to do whatever they wanted him to do. And before I knew that story, felt like that was kind of why I keep mine. It's like not meant to be like a symbol of rebellion or anything. Just like, I'm not the pastor that was here for 30 years. I'm not a pastor from a generation past. I'm a different pastor than you've had.
Ben's a different kind of person.
Yes.
He's special.
God says that, or my mom says that God made me uniquely and wonderfully.
I had a teacher in high school who, and this is a story for my brothers because I had already gone through her class, but she was getting real close to retirement and far beyond the age of caring. And at one point, there was a child in her class who was complaining about, I think it was like his 98 or 99 because he thought it should be 100. And she turned to him and said, "Don't listen to everything your mom said. You're not that special." It was a great moment. It was a great moment. Apparently, the kid was super annoying a lot of the time. So
sometimes we need to hear that. Yeah. It's also recognize that people are different and that different people are going to have different strengths and abilities. But also, like, we're all still people. So there's going to be some things that unite us.
Isn't it wild that Ben got there from an episode about facial hair? Crazy.
You're welcome.
Crazy times.
You're welcome. Josh, empty netters.
Ooh. If you have a beard, keep it neat. If you have someone in your life who has a beard, politely encourage them to keep it neat.
Yeah. My empty netter was going to be basically the exact same thing. So I'm going to adapt it and say, if you have good facial hair, if you're proud of your facial hair, not in a sinful way, but just like I think I do a decent job of maintaining it kind of way, you should like put a picture in the comments. I don't know if that's actually possible.
I don't know if you can do that, actually.
But more power to you if you can. Or just drop a bearded dude emoji in the comments. That'd be great.
That I'm fairly confident you can do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's do that. Josh, scoreboard update?
Oh, scoreboard update. It has not changed since last week. Jesus is still on top with infinity. I'm still ahead of Ben by 1 point, with the exception of Derpy. How many points did Ian give Derpy again?
59.
Well, Derpy now has 69 points. So Derpy is beating me and Ben, and Jesus is still in the lead, but Derpy is coming in a solid second. I'll look at this comment and read the rationale. Derpy gets those points because he brings joy to the people. So this fictional character now brings joy to the people. Okay. And one more update before we leave the show, in case anyone missed it. If you're listening, you can't see this, but if you're watching on the YouTube, we do now have cross-checking hockey jerseys. Ben's is in the mail. It'll be there soon. If you are a faithful listener and you want your own cross-checking jersey, we can make it happen, but you have to reach out to us because it's like an individual order thing. I think they cost in the ballpark of $60, 62 or something. I don't remember. Thrivent, thank you for Thrivent Action Teams because they sponsored both our new mics and the jerseys. So thanks, Thrivent. We had to promise them that we are not a for-profit show, which is easy because neither of us wants to add ads to this show.
That sounds like a lot of work.
Also, that's my least favorite part of every podcast. And I think most of our listeners can probably agree with me. If you have podcasts with ads, you don't enjoy the ad part. No one does. Anyway, so with all that being said, we hope you guys have a wonderful day or evening, whatever time you're listening. Go in peace. Serve the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Thank you for listening in to this episode of Cross-Checking, a ministry of Hope and Good Shepherd Lutheran churches, where we strive to deepen your understanding of the faith and help apply it to daily life. If this podcast is helpful to you, rate the podcast, subscribe to us on your favorite platform, and share it with others who might also gain something from it.